This is the first of 3 episodes in a series looking at various areas we have underachieved. This episode, I will take a look at our potential, raising our children, and our educational system. Do you believe this is the best we can do as a society, as a world? Can we really pat ourselves on the back and congratulations of what we accept for our lives? We like to compare our society to others in believing that things are better for us. Why not compare it to what it could be? Why not ask, where does the system fail and why? What can be answers to these problems? How can it be improved? My hope is that this may send you along the path of positively answering my initial question in the first episode. Is the world a better place because of your existence? Even for those who are not compassionate about people, we are not doing things in the best interest of the individual or yourself. Our systems have resulted in torture, slow growth, lack of understanding, and a lot of misery, and really nowhere near the quality of life we should have. Or there are countless examples in history of the rise of a state to prominence followed by a fall to an almost Stone Age existence. What makes us think we won't do the same? That we won't regress as all empires, countries have? If we don't prepare for it to not happen, it will happen. If we do not ask how we can live, then we will be assured that we will not live that way. We are doing things better than we have done throughout most of history, but should be doing far better. I think most of us, when asked how we have done as a civilization, would either respond to that question in a neutral or positive way. Compared to what we could have done, we have done horribly. I suppose we have done well compared to our Stone Age ancestors, but is that really the comparison that we wish to make? Another comparison is to compare our government to an autocratic regime. The main reason autocratic governments fail is that they are only one of a few minds, or one mind, making the decision on how to run the country. They have a large number of resources in their countrymen, but fail to use them at all. I have heard scientists say that had we employed empiricism or scientific method in the Middle Ages, then we would have centuries ago have done things that we now can only begin to imagine. Scientific method is the use of experiment and observation to understand. Imagine what we could have done, what we could be, if our focus was far greater on reaching our and society's potential. Our quality of life, wealth, technology, ability to understand and overcome would be incomprehensible. Such a commitment, even today, would better our lives in a hurry. Most of us can achieve what virtually anyone else can achieve in most areas. Achievement often has little to nothing to do with inherent talent. If you look across humanity, there is a sea of waste, a waste of potential, and not the fault of the individuals, but of humanity as a whole. We do not teach how to properly engage in our potential, even what it is. Some would suggest I have overvalued the potential of an individual, but I have too often seen individuals with fairly limited skills, little obvious talent, less than average intelligence, who were able to do exceptional things in their fields. The commonality among them was somehow the world hadn't succeeded in taking them down. When the world doesn't have confidence in them, they refuse to listen and instead realize what it is they can do. We all need to do the same, but how? Is it acceptable that so many small children are viciously beaten by their parents, brought into an environment without love, exist in deep poverty, even living on the streets? Is it acceptable that we have poorly educated a large number, narrowly educated most? According to the American Institutes for Research, 2.5 million children in the U.S. are homeless in the course of a year. That shows how little we value our children. Children are often raised without direction. As parents, we haven't given much thought as to how to raise our offspring. And when there is thought, it is often to suffice our narcissistic needs or our own desires. Let's say you were hired to do one thing. There was a child that was just conceived, and you were responsible for the development of this child. Not as a parent, but as a strategist, a mentor, an overseer. That this was your job, your career. You were well trained on how to best do this. If you were not compassionate about children, then you would be taught this trait. Your task would be to aid in developing a child that would be happy and best prepared to contribute all they could to the world. Let's say there were also heavy expectations on you. You were not allowed to quit on the child. Will this child contribute to the world? Will this child do well in life? How do you think this child as an adult would answer the question, is the world a better place with or without you? Would you teach this child all that you feel the child needs for the world? What if the same commitment were made by society in general about every child? Should this child fail, it would be your and or society's fault. If I were given such a job, I am sure this child would not fail. If the child did, then I would be at fault. It is the concern of this channel to learn to develop that child, every child, the very best they can be developed. Imagine if every child were given such an effort. We have so many resources to develop a child, yet we often use little or none of them. A child has such amazing potential, and yet we as a society give little to nothing of developing the child. By giving a life of joy, hope, prosperity, meaning, and education allows that child to give to humanity and to themselves. Some would say this is what parents are supposed to do, and that's true, but being a parent is distracting. There are a lot of demands on a parent outside of best preparing a child for life. But yes, a parent could and should be what I described. Let's look at our education system. It is impossible to get a good education from quite a number of our schools. These schools are primarily in poverty-ridden inner city or rural areas. It is a rare student who makes it out of one of these schools with abilities to function as they may wish to in the job market. Nearly all who have been part of that system are functionally illiterate, have poor math communication skills, and have done little in other academic areas. The effort and large amounts of money poured into such schools are for the most part a tremendous waste. What of the rest? Our school system seems to be developed for two purposes. One is to educate people for the basic workforce, and the other is to draw out the most talented students, given the educational system structure. Virtually all of us are given a very narrow form of education. It is rare we are taught how to really think, how to live our lives, much about the world, and truly how we might best contribute. Why isn't education's goal to develop every student as much as possible, to help create a student who can highly contribute to the world? I believe it is a question that is not asked. This has to be a priority of our school system and society in general. Our leaders have to be focused on this, and so do each of us. We have to make a far better effort figuring out why Some students don't do well through school. Some of our greatest contributors haven't done well in school. People like Albert Einstein, Thomas Edison, Leonardo da Vinci, and on and on. But somehow, they were able to get beyond, despite the system. I wonder how many Einsteins and Edisons never developed because the system didn't figure out how to educate them. We can do this. We can figure out how to educate everyone. The U.S. spends $750 billion per year on education. As a whole, I think it has done a fairly poor job in comparison to what it could and should. I feel the education we receive outside school should be more important than what we receive in school. This is how to live our lives, the education of life, how to be good parents and spouses, an understanding of the skills needed in the work environment, the understanding of how to adapt to change. There are an endless number of subjects in this category that are not being conducted in an efficient manner. How do we better do this? The next episode will be a continuation of this. Why can we do so much more? It will take a look at medical, crime, corporate manipulation, and government. Please support the channel by subscribing and liking. I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching.